This is Gemara Baba Kama Daf Gimel. Today's shir has been generously sponsored as an incredible schos refuah shlema for Yoel Ben from Aliza B'siyata D'Shmaya. Incredible news, off the ventilator, out of the ICU, and B'siyata D'Shmaya. The continued schos ha'Torah should bring him home very, very soon. As well, like to mention to the Olam that Baruch Hashem, the shul that I have a schos to be the Rav of, is having another fundraiser. Baruch Hashem, they secured a building, and Mirz Hashem will be moving from the garage into a proper building, but now they need the last few dollars to close on the house and do the necessary renovations. Charity.com/River Glen Stiebel. Anyone who'd like to participate, any dollar amount. You want to give a lot is beautiful, but even $18 means a lot. Any bit is beautiful. So b'siyata d'shemaya, anyone that would like to contribute. For now, let's pick it up. Beis Amid Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. In case anyone is a little bit, lost. I hope you're not lost. We're on Daf Beis. But just to remind ourselves, we're in the middle of looking for Rav Papa. Rav Papa, 4 lines from the top on Beis Amid Beis, said a line. And the line that he said was with regard to toldais of Avos, with regard to nizikin damages, Baba Kamadik, yesh man kayotze behem, yesh man lav kayotze behem. And from there began trying to figure out which is which Avos are kayotze, which Avos are not. When are the toldais, which toldais? Toldais being the subcategories, when do they have the same din? When do they have a different din? On the bottom of Beis Mebeis, we finished the previous shir with figuring out that Karen, the Gemara concluded and said, Tolda de Karen ki Karen. So toldas of Karen are like Karen. And now we want to figure out, when did Rav Papa say his din that yesh mehen lav kayotze behem? So we found out when there are toldas that are the same as the avos, but when are the toldas not the same? And that's going to be most of the journey of Daf Gimel, is going to be continuing to figure out this detail. When are the toldos lav kayotze behem? As the Gemara says, v'chikamer Rav Papa ashein v'regel. Says the Gemara, ashein v'regel, the tooth and the foot, and the format's going to always be the same. We're going to first begin proving that there is a type of damager that we're discussing. Then we're going to say what are the qualities of that type of damage. Once we know the qualities of that type of damage, then we're going to try to figure out whether the toldais are the same din as the avos or not. So says the Gemara of Chikamer Abba, Shein V'regel. Shein V'regel Hechi Kisivi. 3 lines at the bottom. Beis Amid Beis. Titanya, as we learned in our Braisa of Shilach, and you should send. What does that refer to? Zeharegel. That's damaging with the foot of the animal. And similarly, the pasuk says, Mishalche Regel Ashar V'Chamar, the sending of the foot, the donkey, and the chamar, the ox and the donkey. Ubier, and when the pasuk says Ubier, Zahashein, that's damaging with the tooth. How do I know? V'cheinu oimer, kasher yivaer, as it will be consumed. The hagolo, the golo is the tooth. Kasher yivaer, when it will be consumed. Ad tumai, completely until its end. So one pasuk teaching us shein, one pasuk teaching us regel. One pasuk teaching us shein, one pasuk teaching us regel. So says the Gemara on the top of Gimel Amud Aleph, Amar Mar. 1 second. Before we go anywhere, let's just figure out what just happened. We just brought 2 psukim to prove the same point. We said V'shilach zu regel. V'cheinu oimer mishalche regel ashar v'chamar. Says the Gemara, it seems time of the Gazer Rachman mishalche regel ashar v'chamar. Sounds like it's only because we have the second pasuk. That's how we know the damager of regel. Again, we're looking for the sources that these entities are damagers. So it sounds like we only know from the second pasuk. Ask the Gemara, what else would we have thought that the first pasuk, the pasuk that says Vishilach, and you should send, what type of damage would that be referring to if not for regel? Meaning, from the fact that we bring down a second pasuk, seems to indicate that the first pasuk would not be enough to teach us that regel is a damager. Why not? What else would the first pasuk of Vishilach refer to? I karen ksiv, we already know that from a pasuk. I shein ksiv, we already know that from a pasuk. So says the Gemara, why do we need two psukim? Itzrach, we need two psukim. I'll tell you why. Sal kedai techamina, because I would have thought I shein. I would have thought both psukim are referring to shein. Why? V'ha'de mechalya karna, v'ha'de loy mechalya karna. I would have thought one pasuk is talking about where the karen, the principle, the item itself, is mechalya, is fully destroyed, fully consumed. Ha'de loy mechalya karna. And one is where it is not. Kamash malon. So therefore, I need a second pasuk to teach me the damager of regel. Givaldik. So now I know that you're liable for your regel, the foot of the animal, the shein, the tooth of the animal. But says the Gemara, 1 second. And of course, we're in a moment after we figure out the psukim, the sources, then we'll circle back around and figure out what we're trying to figure out, which is what is the status of the toldais, of the subcategories, whether they are kiyotze or lav kiyotze behem. Says the Gemara, Vashto kimna regel. Now that you're telling me the pasuk of Vishilach is talking about regel, so now shein deloy mechalya karna minolan, meaning the havamina. The havamina was that there's a difference in the two types of shein. Says the Gemara, where do you know that from? Explains the Gemara, Domi de regel, just like damaging with a foot. Ma regel loisha mechalya karna of loisha loy mechalya karna. So too, I have shein when it comes to the tooth, loisha mechalya karna, loishana loy mechalya karna. So part A of the Braiso we have dealt with. Now we know why we need that one pasuk of a shilach is not enough to teach us regel. We need the second pasuk as well. Amar Mar, says the Gemara. Okay, let's continue in the Braiso that we quoted. Ubir, we said zu ashein v'cheinu aimer, and we brought down a second pasuk. So the same question. We have two psukim teaching us shein. Why? It sounds like time to cause rachmana It sounds like only because we have the second pasuk of Avlachi. Without the second pasuk, ask the Gemara, but Mayokim the law, what would we think that the first pasuk of Ubir is referring to? E carrying ksivi regel ksiv, the exact carving copy setup of the Gemara. Explains the Gemara the same type of teretz. Eitzrich, you know why? Because if I only had the first pasuk of Ubir, I would have thought I regel. I would have thought both psukim are talking about regel. But now, why would I need two psukim for regel? And of course, within the weavings of the pasukim, we're learning the unique nuances of each type of damager. So says the Gemara, just like we would have thought we needed two psukim for shein, one where it completely consumes, one where it does not, by regel as well. I would have thought I need one pasuk dazel memelo when the animal on its own goes in damages. Hadishal shaluchi, one where you send the animal to damage. Kamash malon, the second pasuk that it's really referring to shein. Says the Gemara the same kasha. V'hashta dokma shein. Now you're talking about shein. Regel dazel memelo minol. Where do we know a regel that goes on its own that it's liable? Tamid the shein, says the Gemara ma shein. Just like shein doesn't make difference as an owner, you send it off regular shal shaluche loishana azal memela. Kivaldik two psukim by regel, two psukim by shein. The second pasuk needed because we would have had a havamina who's only referring to one type of shein, one type of regel, the teretz that we have two psukim. How do we know both types of damagers from both? We learn one from the other. And now, as one can anticipate, now that we know that we have four psukim, two by shein, two by regel, the question is why? Why don't we just learn shein and regel out from each other? Let her just write v'shilach. Again, by regel, we have two psukim of, we have the pasuk of v'shilach, and we have the pasuk of mishalchei regel shar v'chamar. By shein, we have two psukim, we have the pasuk of ubir, and we have the pasuk of kershe yivar golal tumai. Says the Gemara, the first psukim by both. Why is that necessary? Just say v'shilach, and we don't need ubir. Temashma regel umashma shein. Mashma regel. How do I know that the word v'shilach refers to regel? To save this part we know already, as we've seen on the bottom of basement base, like we started with today. Mishalchei regel ashar ve'achamar. How do we know Shein? Umash Meshein, Dersev, and this is a new pasuk teaching me that Veshilach is referring to Shein. Dersev, Veshein Behemos, Ashalech Bam. So we see that Shein is set in conjunction with Shalach. So says the Gemara, why do we need the pasuk of Veshilach? Why do we need the pasuk of Ubir? Explains the Gemara, Ilav Kra Seirav, not for the additional pasuk of Ubir. Havamina, I would have thought, Ayha. I would have thought either this or that. Either regel, which it's normal and common for an animal to damage with its feet. Or shein in which the animal gets benefit, gets enjoyment from the damage. So I would not have known both. That's why we need both psukim. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Michti, let's see. Shkulinhain. Sounds like they're both the same. They have the similar dinim. We have Oshneim, so we should be able to learn out both of them. So this is a very interesting kasha of the Gemara, as the Gemara basically just flipped around the kasha that it just had. The Gemara now just said, once we know that we can learn out one, once we know that each one has its own unique nuances, and once we know that they're both very, very similar, which one would you exclude? Meaning, the burden of proof is on you. Why would you think one is not included if they're both shakul, if they're both equal? Says the Gemara, I would have thought this is only when it goes on its own, but not when you send it to damage. Kamash Mala, and therefore we need the chiddush that even when it's azal memela, even when it goes on its own, you're still liable for damage. And that's why we now know that we have 4 psukim, 2 by Shein, 2 by Regel. Okay, so now we know the primary source, the makar in the Torah for Shein and for Regel. Now that we know that, now we have to go to the next step, which is what? Which is what we started with. Which is what? Which is what are the toldos of Shein and Regel. Let's remind ourselves. We started off yesterday the Arba of Eistezikin, Shar, Bar, Mave, and Hever. We're in the middle of Shar, which we says Keren, Shein, and Regel. We dealt with Keren yesterday. Now we're dealing with Shein and Regel. The tooth and the foot, 2 types of damage. The Gemara now is trying to figure out, number 1, why are they liable? We dealt with that. Number 2, what are their subcategories? What are their toldos? Which we deal with right now. I know we're going to drop slower. That's by design, to hopefully aid in the clarity. If anyone prefers that we go back to a little bit faster, shoot me an email, and the popular opinion will win. But for now, let's continue. Toldai Deshein Mahi. We're about 20 lines to the bottom, Gimel Amid Aleph, the 2 dots. What are the toldos of Shein? Says the Gemara, the animal scratches itself on a wall, and thereby breaks the wall, lahan also for its benefit. V'tinfa peiros, lahan also, or if soils fruits for its benefit, the animal needs to use the bathroom, and that in the process ruins the fruit. That type of damage is a tolda, is a subcategory of Shein. Why is it a subcategory? What does that have anything to do with Shein? Cause it has the same qualities of Shein. That what? Ma'ishna Shein the Ishanale Zeika, it gets benefit. And it's your money. Ushmiras Alech, you're obligated to watch it. Hani Nami, these 2 types of damages as well. Yishanale Zeika, Mamancha, Ushmiras and Alech. So says the Gemara, once we understand that this type of damage is called Shein, why is it called Shein? Because it has the same properties of Shein. Therefore, what is Shein? Ella tolda de Shein kisheit. So therefore, what do we see? We see that the subcategory of the tooth is just like the tooth. So when does Rav Papa say he's then I'll total the Regel? Again, let's remind ourselves. We started off trying to figure out the Arba Avos Nezikin. Once we had the Arba Avos Nezikin, we have to know what are the din of the toldos. Rav Papa said some are kiyotze, some are lav kiyotze. We're trying to figure out what is lav, what is not the same. We're in the middle of discussing Shar. We dealt with Shar. We dealt with, which is Keren, Regel, and Shein. Now we have to deal with Regel. Says the Gemara, Tolda de Regel Mahi. What are the toldos of Regel? If an animal damages with its body, as the animal is walking, its body bumps into something and damages. Or bisairo with its hair, as it is walking. Or bishlif she'aleha, or with a bell that is tied around its neck. Or bishlif she'aleha, the package on its back. Or Beprumbia Shabepia, the bell, the bit in its mouth, or Bezug Savara, or the bell around its neck. So these are 4 types of ways an animal can damage, which are going to be subcategories of regel. Says the Gemara, okay, but great. What is the defining factor of regel is what? It's common to damage, so to these. Told the regel. So now we know Shane. Now we know regel all have the same din of tolda de regel keregel. So Keren, Shein, and regel. So what's next? Next is let's go back to the Mishnah. In the Mishnah we had Arba Avis Dezikin, Shar, Bar, Mav, and Hever. We dealt with Shar. Now what's next? Now we got to deal with Bar, Mav, and Hever, which will be the duration of today. Says the Gemara. So now V'chikam Rapapa, when the Rapapa says Dinah tolda. De bar, 8 lines from the bottom, told the bar mai. What is a subcategory of a damager of a pit? Says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me an av is Yoda told us test that if a bar is 10 tfachim deep, that is the av of the primary way to pick a damage. The told us if the bar is 9 tfachim deep. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. There's no difference. The Torah didn't say either explicitly, so why would one be an av? Why would one be a toldo? Why is one a primary damage? Why is one a secondary damager? Says the Gemara, no, halakashi, because the pasuk says, the dead body should be his, Amar Rachmana. And that's referring to when something falls into a pit and damages. They came to the Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan established that Yud Avdin Misa bar that is 10 tefachim deep causes damage. Tes Nizikin Avdi Misa Loi Avdi. 9 damages but doesn't cause death. So the Gemara wants to assume that which is more in the Torah of Hamesia Loi 10 tefachim, that will be the Av. So that will just cause damage. 9 tefachim, that will be the Tolda. Says the Gemara, Saif, however, you're going to cut this cookie, Za'avla Misa, Za'avla Nizakin. What's the difference? They're both primary ways of damage. Just one is more in the realm of death and one more in the realm of damage. Ella says, okay, I'll give you another way that you could damage as a bar, as a pit. With your Evan, with your knife, or with your load. You leave these items in the middle of the street, and they cause damage. So again, we're now stretching what is bar, what is the way that you damage with your pit. So first we thought just with your pit, you dig a hole in the ground. Now we're saying no. If you leave a stone, you leave your knife, you leave a package, and that damages as well left by the ground. That's another form of bar, says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, 1 second, 2 lines of the bottom, hechidami. What's the case? If you made these items hefker, meaning you made your Evan, your stone, your knife, or your package hefker, then bein the Rav, bein the Shmuel, hainu bar. Who's Rav, who's Shmuel? What in the world's going on over here? So Rashi, towards the bottom, explains that this is a machlokes that we're going to get to Mirz Hashem in a few weeks at Daf Chav Ches, and both Rav and Shmuel that are going to hold that if you have a takola, you have a stumbling block, continues Rashi 3 lines to the bottom, that you are a mafker, we learn out from bar that you are obligated. So says the Gemara, then it's bar. So we turn over to Gimel Amid Beis, and the Gemara continues, and and if it's your Avin, Masai, if it's your stone, knife, or package, your takola, your stumbling block, that what? That you were not mafker them, you to make them ownerless. Says the Gemara, Shmuel. According to Shmuel, Da'amar, Shmuel explains, Kulami Bayr Lamanu. Again, this is the Sugyand Daf Chav Zayin that we're going to have to get to. Chav Ches, but Shmuel's going to say that they all learned out from Bar, Hainu Bar. So for this moment, we're just going to have to take the Gemara's word for it, and when we get to Chav Ches, we'll understand it more. But Shmuel says it's a bar. Rav says no, it's more comparable to a shar. Why? We're going to get to. Rashi says, Rashi actually doesn't tell us why, so let's leave it for now. Lamanu hainu shar. Maishna bar shekain ilasai asiyasai lenezek umalchash rasalecha. Just like your bar, just like your pit, the beginning of its creation, its original, inception, when you make a bar in Rosh Hashanah, doesn't mean it's made to damage. It's made that it could damage. It's sitting there. It's a pit in the middle of the street, and it's your possession, and you're obligated to watch it. These also so says the Gemara, whichever way you're going to cut your Evan, Sakin, Masa, your knife, your load, your stone, Tolda de bar, Kebar, it's going to be the same thing as bar. So it can't be bar. So what's next? Tolda de Maveh. The third damager in the Mishnah, which is Maveh, which when we learned the Mishnah, Rashi taught us held on tight. The Gemara will tell you what is Maveh, and here we are. Baruch Hashem. My new, what is Maveh? Says the Gemara. Eli Shmuel, the Amar Maveh zu Shein. Shmuel says, you know what Maveh is? Maveh is Shein, where 8 lines from the top on Gimel at base. First word on the line is De Amar. According to Shmuel, it says Maveh Shein, it's Shein. Hakim, no, we've already established. Told the Shein Kishein a few moments ago. Eli Rav, the Amar Maveh is Adam. If it's according to Rav that says Maveh is Adam, okay, we haven't yet spoken about Adam. So my avois to my totals. Okay, so now we're going within the world of Rav, how he explains a Maveh. Let's understand. Maybe we're going to figure out something that's a Lav Kayotzbem. We're going to figure out a subcategory that is not the same as the Av. But what is the Av? What is the Tolda of Adam? My Avos Toldas is space. Says the Gemara. If you're going to suggest Av is Neir, you damage when you're awake. Tolda is Yashin, you damage when you're sleeping. We learned in the Mishnah, Adam Muad La'olam. When a person damages, whether you're awake, whether you're sleeping, Bein Ar, Bein Yashin, you're considered a Muad, you're considered prone to damage. So can't be an Adam Hamazik. Ela Kichai V'niyoi. Says the Gemara, so you know what it must be? It must be your Kichai V'niyoi, your saliva and your mucus. Hey Chidami, says the Gemara, how do these items damage? Now we get into the nitty gritty of saliva and mucus. Says the Gemara, how could your saliva damage? How does your mucus damage? If you let out a nice spittle and in the air it damages, it's your koyach, it's your strength. And therefore, what? Who cares if it's your strength? Says Rashi. Therefore, it's Adam Gufay. What's the difference? You punch someone in the face. What's the difference if you spit in the face? It's the same force of yours, and therefore you're liable. Continues the Gemara. Ibasar denayich. If you spit, it lands in the ground, and then it damages, cause someone to slip, etc. Says the Gemara, Bein Rabbi and the Shmuel, as we just said a moment ago. Hainu bar. Ella told the Maveh Kimaveh. Rather, we're going to say that the Tolda of Maveh is Maveh, and V'chikamar Ababa told the Eish. Now, if anyone is wondering why is Adam Hamazik called a Maveh, stay tuned. That B'siyat D'Shmaya will probably be the end of today, beginning of tomorrow's Shir. Says Rabba, rather, you know what we're up to? Again, Arba Avos Tezikin. Shar we did. Bar we did. Mava we did. Shar we had all the subcategories. Karen, Shane, and Regal. Shar, Bar we did. We had all its subcategories. We had the Evan. We had the Masai. We had the pit itself. We got to Mava. It was the Adam. We have awake. We have sleeping. We have your Kaichav and your saliva and your mucus. Finally, what's the last one in the Mishnah? Is Eish. Told the Eish Ma'niu, what is the subcategory of an Eish Hamazik of fire damaging? You place a stone, a load, a knife on your roof, and what happens? And a regular wind comes and blows them off your roof when they damage. Says the Gemara, let's figure this out. If they damage in the air, excuse me, not in the air. If as they're moving they damage, that's exactly the way that an Eish damages. As an Eish moves, it burns. As the stone moves, it breaks the window. It's the same thing as an Eish. Maishna Eish, just like an Eish of fire. Echad mu'ura behen, excuse me, koyach acher mu'ura behen, just like Eish requires an outside force, as well as excuse me, I lost my place. That the Eish requires an outside factor, requires the wind to fuel it. We'll see what that means. It's your money, you have to watch it. Haninami, this item also, the stone, the load, the knife flying through the roof, flying off the roof. So we went through the whole Mishnah, and we're stickle stuck. We haven't found any toldos that are not the same as the avos. Says the Gemara, so you know what? Told the Regel. What? Regel? Oh, Kim, no, you already said Tolda de regel keregel. And finally, we conclude, you know what Rav Papa meant? A 2-daf journey in yeshivas. This takes a month. We did it in 2 days. Is actually, I'm sure some people who've learned this in yeshiva have a little bit of a joy being able to see the whole shleimus, the whole sugya in one breath. Says the Gemara, well, a few breaths. Says the Gemara, told it the keregel, which is what? Bechatzi nezek tzroiris, which an animal damages with its rocks. We'll see what that means. It has to pay chatzi nezek. Looks like a miri law that has to pay halach l'moshe misinai, that it pays chatzi nezek. We'll see what's this case. Says Rashi directly across in the Gemara. Shaisa mahalach. The animal is walking v'tiza tzroiris beragleha, and rocks shoot off of its feet. It's walking, it kicks the rack. Like every little kid, as you're walking, what do? You kick the racks in front of you. But what happened? Vishivroi esa kelim, and that rack went in and broke kelim. What's the halacha? Even though it happened with the rega, we have a unique halacha. The kaimalon hilchasa gemiri la lemoisha mi sinai dimemoino. It's considered your money. V'loi kenas. It's going to be a sugar later on, and therefore you have to pay chatzi. Nezik, you have to pay for half of the damage. Back to the Gemara. My Karle told the regel. So why is this called told the regel? L'shale min aliyah. So now we found out something which is a tolda, a subcategory. It's not the same as the av, because when an animal damages with its regel, with its foot, of course it has to be nezik shalim, full damage. This is damaging with its foot. It kicks a rack and it pays chatzi nezik. So in what way is it similar to the av, to the regel? L'shale min aliyah, that it pays from the best. Says the Gemara, 1 minute. By Rava. Rava asked as the shaylas. We'll see. By Rava chatzin as exoros. Meguva mishalim and aliyah l'shalim. Says the Gemara, you're right. L'Rava mi baile. Rava asked it as a shayla. But l'Rav Papa, who were in the middle of figuring out sheet lay l'Rava mi baile amaykar le told the regels. According to Rava lamaisa. Why is it called told the regel? According to Rava, if he's not sure if it pays min aliyah, says the Gemara lepaitrai bershus harabim. So after a long and lengthy journey, we've concluded that which item is told by Seim love kayotzben. The subcategory is not exactly the same. Chatzi nezik sroyer is coming on offshoot off of regel, which of course is an offshoot off of shor hamazik in the Mishnah. 2 reasons why it's similar to the av, even though it's only paying chatzi nezik, either because it pays min aliyah, pays from the best, or because it is pater in rishus harabim. We'll just begin. Actually, we'll stop over here to do that, and we'll pick up Siyat Shmaya from why Mav is Adam the next year in Mirza Hashem.